Hey guys, the other day I saw an article that Google released about how they're publishing Gemini to be finally available on Gmail. So this is a long time coming, and I was kind of waiting on this to happen as well because we know Gemini was a standalone product, and then it got limited interactions with other Google products like Docs, spreadsheets, and so on and so forth. But now that it's finally a part of Gmail, it kind of inspired me to talk about this topic, which is why that most of these SF startups will fail. So let's get started off with the email space. We know that the king of email right now is quite literally Google. Gmail, the Yahoo's literally dead right now, and I don't know anybody else that uses Yahoo except I don't know millennials. Like do millennials even count? Anyways, yeah. So like no one uses Yahoo. Everybody uses Gmail, and Gmail like holds the majority of the market share in this so-called email category. There's a good reason for this, guys, because Gmail started off as a side project at Google. It wasn't even their main product. And it makes the most sense because Google had been a big search engine from that point on, where it made sense for people to kind of hop onto a Gmail account associated with the browser they search on, right? It makes, perfect sense, right? That's why Gmail started to pop off. Now, let's say you're a startup working in the email space and you're creating AI agents for email, or you're creating like an AI summarizer for your Gmail, and you're able to interact with other external applications. And you see one of the biggest tech companies ever just come in and take all your customers. Possible. This is a possibility. And this is quite literally what Google is doing with the release of Gemini into Gmail. So if you were a startup, it will kind of put you in panic mode right now because the reason is that big tech will always have a user leverage over some no-name startup because of the trust they've already established across 10, 20 years, such as Google, right? So most of these startups will fail when big tech catches onto their plays. And email is one example. You see a lot of, you know, you see why it's common that startups building in the email space and some other ones you can probably think of right away when they're trying to solve problems, a big tech company is already doing it, right? So an example of this can be the Instagram and Facebook acquisition. We know that Mark Zuckerberg, um, he basically saw Instagram as a threat because he was worried that it would take away Facebook's customer base. But guys, imagine if Zuckerberg made his own Instagram instead of buying it out, if that makes sense. Like if he just spent the time to hire some engineers and just make his own Instagram and have it published into the App Store and release it. I honestly think that it would literally just take away the original users and it would have made the original users go onto his copy, if that makes sense, right? Because Facebook was already popping off. It already had a huge sentiment in terms of the social media landscape. And Mark Zuckerberg had a stronghold on the entire type of social media environment, right? So I honestly think that would have happened, but it would have taken longer, right? Versus compared to just him buying out Instagram, which is very fast and straight to the point. Another example is Vine. Remember when Vine existed and then it just died, and then we had TikTok came out literally a couple years later, and now TikTok is literally being acquired by Oracle right now. So guys, it's literally a two-way street. You either live a couple years, I would say, and then you die, or you get acquired by a big tech company. So, and when it comes to a big tech company like Oracle, these guys are aggressively known for kind of just acquiring companies and shutting them down right away because they saw them as competitors. And another example I want to give you that kind of just ties the knot is the Windsurf acquisition. So we know that Windsurf, which is an AI IGE company, we know that the top employees, including the CEO and co-founder, was hired by the Google team, right? So how it went down is that there was a deal for around $2.4 billion dollars where they hired Windsurf CEO and co-founder and the top people in their team. And as a result, around 250 employees were left holding basically worthless equity in the remaining company. So look at this, guys, from a pragmatic standpoint. All the best people at Windsurf went to Google, and anybody else around 250, they were left with nothing because the equity in that company diluted so much. So this is a frightening example of how a startup just dies just like that. Windsurf literally got swept up by Google, guys. And I'm telling you guys, once everybody like everybody has a price that they're willing to switch out for. Everybody has a price that they're willing to switch up on their day ones for. And for the Windsurf CEO and co-founder and these other people, it was around $2.4 billion. How the story doesn't end there, it doesn't end on a bad note because Cognition, another AI startup, came to the rescue. Cognition, uh, what they do is they create an AI software engineer called Devin. So this is a type of agent, and what they did is they acquired the remaining artifacts of Windsurf's assets, product brand, customers, and of course the remaining employees. So that's how the story ended at the end of the day. And I guess you guys can see the pattern I'm trying to tell you guys where most of these SF startups will die or they'll either be acquired. And even when they're acquired, guys, it's not going to be a smooth acquisition. A lot of people might face penalties that they're not aware of, right? All it takes is one big company to release some product in the same market space as a startup, and they basically shut down an entire ecosystem of competitors.